Okay, so today, your lesson that you did, we recorded it just so you could look back at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we we are now in review mode for milestones. So tell me a little bit about what you were doing in the video and the purpose of it.
Got you. So, as we know, milestones are going to be happening next week, starting on Thursday and Friday. And ELA has two different sections. So on Thursday is the first section, and then Friday is going to be the second section. So we're really just doing an overview for what they're going to be seeing on Thursday for the first section. So with ELA, there are going to be for the first day, there are going to be two passages
Okay.
and three multiple choice questions. The first question is going to be for the first passage. The second question is going to be for the second passage, and then the third one is going to be for both of them.
Okay.
And then after that, there's going to be a short constructive response. So that's going to be around 3 to 4 sentences of them answering a prompt. And then they're either going to have to do an informational essay or an argumentative essay. So with this, it was pretty much kind of what you would see on day one of the milestones, but instead of them having either or for the informational or argumentative essay, we were strictly doing the argumentative essay.
Okay. All right. And so, what are some things that you feel went well in the lesson? We'll start there. What are some things that you feel went well with your lesson?
Well, I feel like my students they are now familiar with what to look for and how to do it in a sense. Of course, we know the practice isn't going to be verbatim on how the test is going to be on Thursday, but they get a feel on, okay, Ms. Snooks is right. There are going to be 3 questions, and I'm going to have to write this and use this prompt, and make sure I'm kind of crossing my T's on what to do when I get there for next Thursday. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you feel like their focus was with this lesson?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I do feel like they were a little bit. I feel like it could have been a lot more engaging.
Okay.
Of course, students don't want to hear somebody reading the whole time, and yeah, I feel like it could have been a lot more engaging on my part.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start there. So that was one of the things that I did notice about the lesson was you did a lot of the reading. And we've talked kind of about this before, and I've been doing a lot of reading to my students too. So it is definitely something that we all struggle with as teachers because it's one thing that we can have in our control.
Exactly.
And you don't have to wait on students to pronounce words correctly and this, that, and the other. But that was one of the first things I was going to say is letting those kids take the ownership of the lesson a little bit more.
Gotcha.
And so having the students read the passage in some way or another, it doesn't necessarily have to be out loud in front of the whole class, you know what I'm saying? But possibly like in small groups or partners, that sort of thing. And divvying up the workload equally. You do have a few students that prefer to work alone, and we understand that, but they also don't understand. I don't want to say don't understand, but they also don't always get the importance of what it is to do that with another person, and where you can bounce things off of one another. All right. What do you feel are some ways that you could have spun that in a different way?
Okay.
I know it's review, and I know that it's that you're wanting to mimic the test as much as possible, but how do you feel like you could spin that a different way in order to get them a little bit more engaged?
If I could have spun it a different way, I probably would have one, I hate to say it, but incentives.
Okay.
If for participation, maybe a little treat or something, but on the more serious side, I would probably do something so that, I don't know, if there's a different website or application where you could put in your answers on the screen and it's anonymous, and then we talk about kind of see who had the right answer or how many correct answers we had, incorrect answers, and kind of talk about what was our mindset on answering that question. In a sense, I don't know. I just feel like that would have been a better alternative than raise your hand for A, raise your hand for B, raise your hand for C, raise your hand for D.
Okay, yeah. And so again, that brings to the next part of the kids raising their hands for the questions, because that's not always you don't always get the best data from that.
Exactly.
As far as if the kids understood something or not. And so even getting them up out of their chairs, like
Yeah.
4 corners, and having them get up and go to a corner. That way they know that they're not alone, and that all students in the classroom have to go pick a corner. And if you're wrong, you get to be wrong with somebody else. But at least you chose an answer, and you had a thought process in some way, shape, or form. All right, yeah, that would probably be a really good idea.
Yeah.
So bringing those exemplars back in so that they can really get an idea of what is best, so that they can also gauge, because I know you're going to be doing some practice writings over the next couple of days before, or you're leading up to the milestones next week. I know you're going to do a couple of example writings or practice writing sessions for them. So that might be a good thing for them to see prior to them writing, because I remember when I was in middle school and, we had something, didn't take the milestones, but there was something similar to it in the writing portion. They really honed in, my teachers did at least, on those example writings. And that's something that I really remember about test prep. Wasn't as serious as it is now, but that's still something I remember. So having those examples would really be a good idea, and kind of, talking about the length, the, and like you said, are we answering the question? What are the details? Is the writing boring, or is it interesting to read? It doesn't matter if it's argumentative, informational, that sort of thing. Does it capture the reader's attention? Because there are going to be people reading these. So
that's true.
All right. So now that we have that, let's talk about what we're going to work on with this cycle real quick. So our goal in total, we kind of already talked about this a little bit, but our goal, or your goal, is to be familiarizing the students with the setup of this exam and this assessment that they're going to take next week. So we're going to we're going to get a focus on what instructional practices will help us to get there with your students. Okay. And so we want to focus on what you're going to be doing with them. And then from there you can set up learning targets and success criteria and all of that fun stuff. So let's focus real quick on instructional practices, and we can kind of limit ourselves down. So what instructional technique do you feel like you need the most help on in moving into getting these kids ready?
That's a good one. I guess you can say engagement.
Okay.
I guess you can. ELA isn't everybody's favorite subject.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I do want to say engagement.
Engagement. Okay. So we'll break into a couple of engagement practices over the next few days, and we'll get those implemented into your lesson. So our time is up, I think. Yeah.
Oh wow, that felt like 5 minutes. What?
I'll cut it, but anyway, so we can get some engagement stuff, a couple of engagement pieces together. I'll get some together for you tonight. Are you continuing the writing tomorrow or no?
No.
Okay,
So
what are you doing tomorrow?
We're gonna do verbal, situational, and dramatic irony.
Okay.
So we're gonna kind of look at that for a little bit.
Okay. All right. So, and this is totally off the record, but like with that, it's like, what are you planning on doing with them, so I can kind of give you a couple of things to try?
I don't know yet. I was gonna check into that today, or when I get home.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me know. Just text me. But your basic setup, like I'm going to do a worksheet, I'm going to lecture, I'm going to do a video, whatever.
I got you.
And we can push out from there. Okay. And I can send you a couple of things tonight so that you can kind of get it moving around in your head. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Not a problem.